In the vast silence between stars, where empires rise and fall like tides of cosmic dust, one truth has held steady for millennia. Humanity is primitive. A young species barely out of its planetary cradle, still fumbling with fusion drives while the galaxy's great powers wield gravity lances and fold space weaponry. The Ketheri Dominion, the oldest, most technologically advanced empire in known space, has long dismissed Earth as a backwater curiosity. Their diplomats smirked at human ambassadors. Their scholars wrote off human science as quaint. Their admirals laughed when rumors whispered of a lone human ship drifting near the contested Helios expanse. But laughter dies fast in the void, because now, on the edge of the Ketheri frontier, a single vessel, unmarked, unclassified, radiating no known energy signature, has just vaporized an entire Ketheri battle group. Not with overwhelming force, not with superior numbers, with precision, with tactics so alien, so brutally efficient, that veteran Ketheri commanders are questioning everything they thought they knew about war. And as the wreckage of their pride drifts in cold silence, one terrified comms officer broadcasts a message that echoes across 1,000 worlds. No way, that's a human warship. This is not the story of humanity's first contact. This is the story of humanity's reckoning. The Ketheri cruiser Virals resolve hung in the silent dark of the Helios expanse like a sleeping predator, sleek obsidian hull, dorsal spines bristling with plasma cannons, its gravitic sensors humming softly as they scanned the empty starfield. To the crew, this was routine patrol duty. Boring even. The expanse had been quiet for cycles. The only anomalies were the occasional smuggler or rogue asteroid, both easily dealt with. Humanity? They were a footnote in the Galactic census, class 2 pre-warp civilization, barely capable of interplanetary travel, according to the last official survey from 3 centuries ago. The Ketheri High Command had long since filed them under non-threats. Commander Vrel Kosh, a veteran of the Zinthari Wars, sipped his synth tea and watched the tactical display. Nothing. Just static. Just the endless black. Then, without warning, the proximity alarm shrieked. "Contact!" shouted Ensign Lyra from the sensor station. "Bearing 342, Mark 7. No transponder. No energy signature." It just appeared. Vrel stood, his scaled brow furrowing. "Impossible. Nothing can drop out of FTL that close without a gravity wake." "It's not FTL," Lyra said, voice trembling. "It's sublight, but moving at 0.4 C and accelerating." The main view screen flickered to life, resolving a shape in the distance. It was odd, angular, blocky, like something cobbled together from scrap metal and desperation. No smooth curves, no elegant symmetry, just brutal geometry wrapped in dull gray plating. It looked less like a warship and more like a cargo barge that had been welded into a weapon by madmen. "Identify it," Vrel ordered. Lyra ran every database scan. No match in Imperial archives. Spectral analysis suggests iron-nickel alloy. Primitive metallurgy. But the drive signature, it's unlike anything I've seen. No antimateria exhaust. No fusion flare. Just clean thrust. Before Vrel could respond, the unknown vessel fired. Not with plasma. Not with lasers. With kinetic rods. Tungsten projectiles accelerated to relativistic speeds. 3 of them. Silent. Invisible until impact. The first struck the resolved forward shield generator. The shield flickered and collapsed. The second pierced the bridge viewport. The third tore through the engine core. In less than 2 seconds, the Viral's Resolve, a ship that had survived 7 major campaigns, became a cloud of expanding debris. On the unknown ship, Captain Elias Vance leaned back in his command chair, fingers steepled. "Target neutralized. Log it as training exercise." His XO, Lieutenant Mara Chun, raised an eyebrow. "Training? We just wiped out a Ketheri heavy cruiser." "They were watching us," Elias said calmly. "And they were arrogant enough to get close. That's what happens when you treat humans like pets." Earth hadn't been idle for 300 years. While the galaxy assumed humanity was still debating climate policy and social media trends, Earth's unified defense coalition had been building something else entirely. Hidden in the asteroid belts, deep in the Kuiper Cloud, orbital shipyards had forged a new kind of navy, not based on flashy energy weapons or exotic physics, but on efficiency, on redundancy, on the cold, hard math of orbital mechanics and terminal ballistics. They called it Project Iron Dawn, and the ship Elias commanded, the UNS Resolute, was its first true test. Back on Ketheri Prime, the news of the Resolve's destruction sent shockwaves through the Imperial Senate. Admiral Kor Vex, Supreme Commander of the Outer Fleets, slammed his fist on the obsidian table. A human ship? Don't insult my intelligence. Humans don't have FDL. They don't even have stable fusion. Yet the sensor logs didn't lie. The wreckage analysis confirmed it. The kinetic penetrators were made of terrestrial tungsten. The debris field contained fragments of human-language circuit boards. Even the oxygen isotopes in the sealed compartments matched Earth's atmosphere. Worse, the Resolute hadn't fled. It was still out there, drifting, waiting. Kor ordered a full task force mobilized. 3 dreadnoughts, 12 cruisers, supported by stealth frigates, and drone swarms. Find that ship, he growled, and burn it to atoms. But as the Ketheri fleet jumped toward the Helios expanse, none of them realized the truth. They weren't hunting a ship. They were walking into a trap. Because humanity hadn't just built better weapons. They'd redefined war itself. The Ketheri task force emerged from FDL in perfect formation, a wall of obsidian steel and crackling plasma fields stretching across 10,000 kilometers of space. At its heart floated the Imperator's Wrath, Admiral Kor's flagship, a vessel so massive it carried its own artificial gravity well. Every sensor array was active, every weapon charged. They expected resistance. They expected a fight. What they didn't expect was silence. The Resolute was gone. Scan the sector, Kor ordered, his voice tight. Full spectrum. Gravitic, thermal, quantum echo. Nothing. Then, a faint ping. From the far side of a nearby gas giant, Helios Beta. There, cried a sensor tech. Sublite signature. Same profile as before. Kor smiled grimly. Good. Let's see how brave these mammals are when faced with real firepower. The fleet pivoted, engines flaring as they closed the distance. But as they rounded the gas giant's limb, they found not a lone ship, but a field of debris. Old satellites, derelict probes, even chunks of lunar rock, all painted matte black and fitted with crude thrusters. And then the ambush began. From behind asteroids, from within the planet's radiation belts, from the shadow of dead moons, dozens of small craft emerged. Not warships, not even armed, just drones. Human drones, retrofitted from mining bots, and cargo haulers, each carrying a single payload, shaped nuclear charges. The Ketheri shields flared as the first wave detonated, not with raw power, but with precision timing. The blasts weren't meant to destroy. They were meant to overload. Each explosion emitted a tailored EMP pulse, tuned to the resonant frequency of Ketheri shield harmonics. One by one, the shields flickered and failed. Then came the second wave. Hundreds of railgun slugs, launched from hidden platforms embedded in the planet's rings. No guidance systems. No AI. Just pure Newtonian physics. Projectiles fired hours in advance. Time to intersect the fleet's predicted path. A Ketheri cruiser vanished in a spray of molten armor. Another lost its primary reactor to a tungsten rod the size of a tree trunk. Admiral Kor roared orders, but chaos had already taken hold. His fleet, designed for open space dominance, was being dismantled by what amounted to space junk and clever math. On the Resolute, Elias watched the battle unfold from a safe distance, cloaked behind a micro-black hole decoy, a trick they perfected using stolen Ketheri graviton tech reverse-engineered from old salvage. They think in straight lines, he murmured. We think in orbits. Mara handed him a data slate. Intel confirms it. The Ketheri have no concept of asymmetric warfare. Their doctrine assumes technological superiority equals battlefield control. And we just proved otherwise, Elias said. But the real victory wasn't tactical. It was psychological. Across the Kethri Empire, panic spread. How could primitives outmaneuver them? How could a species without FTL coordinate such an attack? Rumors flew. Humans had secret allies. Humans had discovered ancient weapons. Humans were demons from the void. None of it was true. Humanity had simply done what it always did best, adapted. While other species waited for miracles, humans built solutions from scrap. Back on Earth, the World Defense Council monitored the battle in real time via quantum-entangled comms. General Li Wei, head of Project Iron Dawn, allowed himself a rare smile. Phase 1 complete. They're rattled. Phase 2, Assazade. Li's eyes hardened. Now we show them what happens when you corner a species that spent its entire history fighting extinction. Meanwhile, deep in the outer system, the Resolute powered up its experimental drive, a hybrid Alcubierre-Krasnikov field, unstable, dangerous, but capable of short-range FTL jumps without leaving a detectable wake. It was humanity's first true FTL drive, and they kept it hidden for a reason. Because once the galaxy knew humans had FTL, they'd come in force. But if they thought humans were still bound to their solar system, then they'd keep underestimating them. And underestimation, Elias knew, was the deadliest weapon of all. As the last Kethri cruiser limped away, trailing plasma and shame, the Resolute vanished into the dark. Not fleeing, but hunting. The war had just begun, and humanity wasn't playing by anyone's rules but their own. The Kethri Empire declared a state of emergency. For the first time in 5,000 years, their borders were breached, not by another empire, but by a species they deemed irrelevant. Panic rippled through the core worlds. Civilian ships were grounded. Trade routes shut down. The High Synod convened an emergency session, their bioluminescent robes flickering with agitation. Admiral Kor, disgraced but not broken, stood before the Synod, his crest lowered in shame. We underestimated them, he admitted. But we will not make that mistake again. He unveiled a new strategy, Operation Silent Maw. Instead of sending fleets, they would deploy the Shrouded Claws, elite stealth assassins trained in infiltration and sabotage. Their mission: slip past human defenses, locate their shipyards, and plant gravitic implosion charges at the core of every facility. What Kerr didn't know was that Earth had been expecting exactly this. For decades, human intelligence had been monitoring Kethri communications, not through hacking or spies, but through passive listening. The Kethri used quantum-entangled Vox crystals for secure comms, a technology humans couldn't break. But they could listen to the sideband emissions, the faint energy leaks that pulsed with every transmission. Using neural networks trained on petabytes of intercepted chatter, Earth's AI had learned to predict Kethri movements with eerie accuracy. So when the Shrouded Claws dropped out of FTL near Mars, they found not a defenseless colony, but a kill box. The red planet's surface, once barren and dead, now bristled with hidden defenses. Railgun turrets disguised as rock formations. Drone nests buried beneath the regolith. And, orbiting above, a network of mirrored satellites that could focus sunlight into cutting beams hotter than a star's core. The first Claw team landed in Valles Marineris, cloaked in phase shift fields. They moved like ghosts, scanning for shipyard signatures. But the moment they activated their gravimetric probes, the ground beneath them moved. Not an earthquake, an engineered collapse. The canyon walls had been laced with nanofilaments, programmed to destabilize on command. Thousands of tons of rock fell, crushing the infiltrators before they could react. Above, the satellites turned. Sunlight converged into a lance of white fire, slicing through the remaining stealth ships like paper. On the Resolute, now stationed in the Orc cloud, Elias received the report. All claws neutralized. 0 human casualties. Mara exhaled. They'll send more. Let them, Elias said. Every time they send soldiers, we learn more about their tech. Every time they lose, their people lose faith. And that was the real goal. Humanity wasn't trying to win a war of ships and guns. They were waging a war of perception. Back on Kethri Prime, dissent grew. Younger senators questioned the wisdom of provoking a species that fought like cornered wolves. Merchants complained of lost profits. Even a military caste began whispering, "What if the humans are stronger than we thought?" Then came the broadcast. It wasn't sent through official channels. It appeared on every public feed, every private comm, every entertainment holoscreen across the Kethri Empire. No encryption, no warning, just a human face, Captain Elias Vance, staring calmly into the camera. "My name is Elias Vance," he said in flawless Kethri, his voice calm, almost gentle. "You call us primitives. You call us animals. But we are neither. We are survivors. And we do not start wars, but we finish them." Behind him, footage played, Kethri ships exploding, not from grand battles, but from simple, brutal traps. A drone swarm overwhelming a dreadnought's point defense. A single nuke hidden in a comet, detonating inside a fleet's formation. All of it set to haunting human music, strings and piano, something achingly sad. "We offer peace," Elias continued. "Leave our system. Recognize our sovereignty. Or keep coming and keep dying." The broadcast ended. Silence followed. Across the Empire, billions watched. And for the first time, fear took root, not of human weapons, but of human resolve. Admiral Kor tried to dismiss it as propaganda, but even he felt a chill, because the humans weren't boasting. They weren't threatening. They were stating facts. And facts in war are the deadliest weapon of all. Meanwhile, deep in the Kuiper Belt, the UNS Dauntless, the second Iron Dawn-class vessel, completed its final shakedown cruise. Faster, heavier, armed with experimental coil guns that could fire rounds at 0.6 C. Humanity was no longer hiding. They were preparing, and the galaxy would soon learn the difference. The Kethri High Synod fractured. Traditionalists demanded total war, glass Earth from orbit, erase humanity from the galactic record. Reformists argued for diplomacy, warning that continued aggression would only breed more resistance. In the streets of Kethri Prime, protests erupted. Artists painted murals of human faces. Philosophers quoted ancient Terran texts on resilience and sacrifice. The Empire was unraveling from within. And then the Dauntless struck, not at a military target, but at the Kethri Relay Nexus, the central hub of their FTL communication network. Without it, the Empire would be blind, deaf, and fragmented. The attack was surgical. The Dauntless emerged from a micro-jump inside the Nexus's defensive perimeter, its hull coated in metamaterials that bent sensor waves. It fired not weapons, but data spikes, nanite-laced projectiles that burrowed into the Nexus's core and uploaded a virus written in machine code, so elegant, so ruthless, it rewrote the system's logic in real time. Within minutes, the entire Kethri comms grid went dark. Panic exploded. Fleets lost coordination. Planets went silent. The Synod couldn't convene. For the first time in millennia, the Kethri Empire was disconnected. On Earth, General Lee watched the chaos unfold on his screens. Phase 3 complete. Now, they're isolated. But Elias knew the real test was coming. Because isolation breeds desperation. And desperate empires do desperate things. Sure enough, Admiral Kor, now acting as de facto warlord, activated the Last Fong Protocol, a contingency plan involving the Void Reapers, ancient biomechanical warships buried in the Empire's dead zones. These ships were semi-sentient, fueled by harvested stellar cores, and programmed with one directive: annihilate all non-Kethri life. They were monsters, and they were coming. The first Reaper emerged near Neptune, tearing through human early warning satellites like tissue paper. Its hull shifted and reformed as it moved, absorbing damage, adapting. It didn't fire weapons. It consumed matter, converting it into energy. The Resolute and Dauntless engaged, but their railguns barely scratched its hide. Nuclear strikes caused temporary wounds, but The Reaper healed within minutes. We can't outgun it, Mara said, her voice tight. It learns. Elias stared at the tactical display. Then he smiled. Then we don't fight it. We feed it. He ordered all ships to retreat, leaving behind a trail of decoys. Old freighters packed with radioactive waste, ice comets laced with neutronium dust, even captured Kethri drones reprogrammed to emit distress signals. The Reaper followed, drawn to the energy signatures. Straight into the sun, humanity had spent decades studying stellar dynamics. They knew exactly how to trigger a controlled coronal mass ejection. As the Reaper dove toward the decoys near the solar corona, Earth's orbital mirrors focused sunlight onto a specific magnetic filament. The sun erupted. A wave of plasma, hotter than 1 billion degrees, engulfed the Reaper. Not even its adaptive biology could survive that. It vanished in a flash of light. When the data reached Kethri Prime, what remained of the Synod finally broke. Admiral Kor was arrested for reckless endangerment. The Last Fong Protocol was declared forbidden, and a new faction, calling themselves the Concord of Reason, rose to power, led by Senator Vela, a former historian who had studied human culture in secret. She sent a message, not through military channels, not through encrypted Vox crystals. She broadcast it openly in plain human English. We wish to talk. On the Resolute, Elias listened. Then he nodded. Patch her through. The war wasn't over. But, for the first time, peace was possible. And humanity, ever pragmatic, was ready to negotiate. But not from weakness. From strength. The meeting took place not on a planet, not on a station, but in neutral space between Jupiter and Saturn, where the rings of ice and rock formed a natural amphitheater of silence. The Kethri sent a single envoy ship, unarmed, its hull painted white in the human tradition of truce. Earth responded with the Resolute, flanked by the Dauntless and a dozen support vessels, enough to show strength but not aggression. Senator Vela stepped onto the airlock bridge, her bioluminescent skin dimmed in respect. She carried no weapons, only a data crystal containing the terms of negotiation. Elias met her in the observation deck, where Saturn loomed large in the viewport, its rings catching the distant sunlight like shattered glass. You surprised us, Vela said, her voice translated by a soft chime in Elias's earpiece. We didn't want to, Elias replied. We just wanted to be left alone. But you didn't hide, she said. You showed your teeth. Because hiding gets you eaten, Elias said simply. We learned that from wolves. From lions. From our own history. Vela studied him. Your species, you build weapons from rocks. You turn sunlight into swords. You fight like poets and kill like engineers. How? Elias smiled faintly. We had to. For 10,000 years, we were prey. Then we became hunters. Now we're something else. The negotiations lasted 3 days. The Kethri agreed to recognize Earth's sovereignty, to withdraw all forces from the Sol system, to share limited scientific data, starting with FTL theory, which humans had already reverse-engineered but pretended to need. In return, humanity offered something unexpected. Help. Not military, not technological, cultural. We've survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, Elias explained. We know how to rebuild, how to heal. Your empire is fracturing. We can teach you how to hold it together without tyranny. Vela was stunned. You would help your enemy? We don't see you as enemies anymore, Elias said. Just neighbors who made a mistake. The treaty was signed, not with blood, not with conquest, with mutual respect. As the Kethri envoy ship departed, Mara turned to Elias. Do you think it'll last? Peace. Elias looked out at the stars. No, but understanding? Maybe. Because humanity knew the truth. The galaxy wasn't kind. Other empires would come. Other threats would rise. The Zenthri remnants. The machine collective from the Andromeda Fringe. Even the mythical void singers who fed on dying stars. But now Earth wasn't alone. And, more importantly, they weren't underestimated. Back on Earth, children looked up at the night sky not with fear, but with pride. Ships bearing the blue and white insignia of the Unified Defense Coalition patrolled the edges of the system, not as conquerors, but as guardians. And in the shipyards beyond Pluto, a new class of vessel was under construction, the Odyssey-class explorer, designed not for war, but for first contact. Because humanity had proven its strength. Now, it was ready to share its wisdom. The galaxy had laughed at humans once. Now it listened. And somewhere, in the endless dark between stars, a new era began. Not of empire, but of hope. Born not from power, but from the quiet, relentless courage of species that refused to be erased.